Hi everyone, my name is Eric Strait. I am a certified sommelier with the Court of Master Sommeliers as well as holding the WSET diploma. And I am coming to you again on behalf of Saratoga Eagle Sales and Service to review another wine in their wine and spirits portfolio, which I feel completely over delivers, especially at this price point, which we'll get to at the end of this video. So the wine that we're going to be doing a virtual tasting note on today is going to be from this producer right here. So this is Ignacio Marin. And the name of this cuvee is the Castillo de Embid. This is the Crianza. So great blend on this, 50% Grenache, 50% Tempranillo. So Ignacio Marin, founded in 1903 in the Carignan region, which is within Aragon. It is all family sourced fruit, so estate-owned vineyards. All the bottling is done on the estate as well. Other than that, there's really not much known about this winery, even if you do some research online. But as far as winemaking techniques and things like that, I'll go over my thoughts on what I think they actually do when we get to the tasting notes. As far as Castillo de Embid, that merely refers to one of two castles that were involved in feuds, or I guess wars you could say, in the 1400s between the region of Aragon and the other region of Castilla y Leon to the west of Aragon. So where is Carignan in regards to everything else in Spain? So if you look at this map of Spain with all the major winemaking regions, Carignan is located right here. All right. So if we travel a little bit more north and west, we encounter Rioja. Major differences though, and I'll touch on those in a second. I just want to say that soil types in Carignan are composed mostly of Miocene clay. There's also some limestone as well as gravel and slate deposits as well. Okay. Most people see Crianza on here. They understand it's an aging requirement. However, this is one of the big differences in Rioja versus the rest of Spain when it comes to aging notations such as Crianza. So if you're talking about Rioja, a Crianza wine done as red has to be aged for at least 24 months. At least one of those years has to be in barrel, and the barrels can or have to be of 225 liters in size. For the rest of Spain, though, when you encounter, with a couple of other exceptions with other appellations that have more strict requirements, but for other general appellations within Spain, if you see Crianza on a bottle of wine, it merely means that the wine has to be aged for 24 months. Only 6 of those months have to be in oak barrels, and the barrels can be no larger than 330 liters in size. So there's a slightly larger forgiveness as far as barrel aging, and there's also less time that these wines have to spend in wood. So that's one of the reasons why I think when people see Tempranillo and Grenache blends, they automatically want to assume that I'm going to compare it to Rioja. And I really think that's completely unfair. I think this is a wine that has to be judged just for what it is and what is in this bottle. You know, also when you think about wines from Rioja and how they traditionally used to be made, these used to be very like soft, red, muted fruit wines that had a huge influence of New American oak. Whereas today you're seeing a much more heavier influence of New French oak with more extraction and more black fruit driven characters. So there's this yin and yang between the super traditional Rioja producers and your more modern producers today. So to try and compare wines now from other regions to Rioja, quote unquote, unless you make specifics as far as time periods and producers, it's not fair. So for our sake and purposes, we are just going to consider this wine by itself in this bottle for what it is. One other note too is daylight hours, like how much sun does Rioja see versus a region like Carignan, right? So Rioja, I believe, has about 2,250 daylight hours during the growing season, whereas Carignan only has about 1,850 daylight growing hours. So a little bit less time to ripen the fruit, but again, different wines, you know, don't worry about that. We're not going to be making assumptions that this is Rioja or trying to be Rioja or it wants to be Rioja, because this is its own entity. Carignan, more continental climate. So again, hot winter or hot summers, sorry, cold winters. There is a mitigating northerly cool wind called the Cirso, which helps to relegate humidity during the summers. But other than that, it's a fairly continental climate. So let's go to, well, let's just jump right into the wine itself and just do some tasting on it, all right? So if you can see from here, I don't know if you can, the wine is more of a deep ruby core, fading to a, I would say, pale ruby rim. Really no meniscus on this at all. So fairly youthful wine. On the nose, I'd say that this is more of like medium intensity. Nothing really jumps out as being super aromatic. But there's definitely notes that do stand out here that I'm able to detect. So for one, I would say black cherries. I'm also getting some pomegranate seeds, almost like dried red raspberry skin. There are some touches of nutmeg and almost vanilla bean skin as well. It's not super obvious here, but that does lead me to think that there is some sort of American oak that is being used on this wine. Also some like freshly crushed white pepper, some sweet tobacco leaf, and there's like this very faint trace of volatile acidity or VA on the back end. I don't think it's dominating at all. I think it's just kind of like an underlying note that kind of helps give a little bit more complexity to the wine. So on the palate, wine is definitely dry. Tannins, I would say, are medium plus. I think they're a little bit more on that dusty side, but more fine-grained in texture. I also think that the acidity is also medium plus as well. It kind of gives this like brightness and liftedness to the wine, which I think is actually fairly refreshing. So as far as flavor profile on the palate, so those notes of vanilla and nutmeg that I was getting on the nose, I think I show a little bit more on the palate than they do on the nose. And it's almost like kind of like vanilla creamed raspberry. So some of that raspberry skin is coming through, but with that vanilla note on the palate, it's coming more as like vanilla cream raspberries. Also like fresh black cherries. And a little bit of that BA on the back of the palate after you kind of swallow it. Alcohol says it's 13.5%. It's a little bit warm. It's not offensive by any means. I think, again, this is being drunk at a warmer temperature than it should. So again, chilled down to its proper temperature, I would say, 55 to 58 degrees, that alcohol would become much less noticeable. Overall, I would say this is more of a strict medium bodied wine. Other notes I want to mention for those of you, food pairings, of course. So, a couple of things that come to mind. Usually a lot of people, when they think of Tempranillo and Grenache, they automatically go to Rioja, where you have more of like that oak influence. And then you see things popping up like roasted meats and barbecue and like smoked foods. I don't think I would go that far with this wine. I think there's more of a freshness and brightness to it. So I would kind of like tone back on the oak notes. I think there is kind of like a perception of sweetness here, that really ripe red fruit characteristic, as well as those vanilla bean notes. So I would almost do like a corn-based dish, something like polenta, or even like Mexican dishes that have corn-based components to them, as well as more milder cheeses, I would say. I think you could do things with tomato-based sauces that have a good amount of acidity, since this does have a brightness to it. Or if you are gonna do like roasting of meats or other type of foods, I would probably go something more along the lines of like lightly roasted vegetables done over like an open flame on the grill. So again, points. This was given 90 points by Wine and Spirits magazine, and having tasted with their editor-in-chief, Josh Green, and much of his staff over the last few years, I can tell you that that is a tremendous accolade. I would almost consider it even more significant than somebody like Robert Parker. Pricing. This is kind of where it gets really impressive. And this is wholesale pricing on this. I don't believe things have changed since I was introduced to this wine originally, but pricing wholesale, again, is $8 per bottle on one case, and these are 12-pack cases. Bottle size is 750 milliliters. On two cases, it gets down to $733. And that's it. So a wine that I think completely over delivers. Again, if you have time, stop by your local retailer, ask for it, and let us know what you think.